brain never takes a holiday. It supervises everything we do. It even reflects on itself and ponders its own design. In today's program, we are going to explore the world of dreams. We will also discover how the brain works and look at two instruments designed to study it: the magnetic resonance scanner and the electroencephalogram. From the Cro-Magnon caves to the pyramids of the pharaohs, mankind has always wanted to unravel the mystery of dreams. The most ancient key to their interpretation is Egyptian and dates back to 2,000 years BC. Popular belief has always put stock in the power of dreams. If you dreamt you were losing your teeth, well, it meant you were going to lose money. Seeing yourself in a mirror announced a wedding. A little simplistic. Maybe this was why serious people tended to consider dreams as the garbage of the mind, useless and unhealthy. Up until a young Viennese doctor, Sigmund Freud, made dreams the basis of a new science: psychoanalysis. What purposes do dreams serve? To assimilate the present, predict the future, or to put us in touch with our inner world? Men, women, young and old, we all dream. All mammals dream. In fact, by the age of 70, we will have spent 4 whole years of our lives dreaming, to the tune of 90 to 100 minutes every night. Who hasn't dreamt of flying? Our nocturnal voyages are filled with images. And yet throughout recorded time in different civilizations, these images reflect less than 100 themes. They correspond to man's basic experiences and major concerns, such as birth, death, and emotional bonds. Human beings experience 2 normal states: being awake or being asleep. The dream state differs from these 2 states. The differences can be clearly observed on an electroencephalogram. When we enter a dream phase, called paradoxical sleep, our metabolism undergoes a complete change. Our eyes begin to move rapidly, while the rest of our body is completely paralyzed. The heart rhythm quickens and slows down in an almost anarchistic way. The biochemical state of the brain is altered. The blood flow increases by 40%. Some regions of the brain are actually more active than during wakefulness. The first dream of the night can last 10 minutes. Then deep sleep takes over again. After an hour and a half, a new dream phase begins. This cycle occurs 4 or 5 times every night. As a rule, as the night goes on, the dreams get longer. By early morning, they can even last up to a half an hour. Soon, machines will help humans better understand their dreams. Research workers in artificial intelligence are currently developing a computerized psychotherapist. After having told her dream to the computer, the dreamer and the machine strike up a veritable conversation. By codifying the elements and analyzing the contents of the dream, the computer is able to suggest various interpretations. The first scientific attempts at interpreting dreams go back about 100 years to Sigmund Freud. Freud believed that a dream about diving and swimming related to the womb. By a reversal process common in our subconscious, the dive would mean rather the emergence from water, hence birth. For his part, Carl Jung, one of Freud's followers, believed that water symbolized the archetypal mother rather than the dreamer's real mother. For Jung, the color of the water, its temperature, every detail distinguishing the choice of one symbol over another was meaningful. The theories of master and student were soon to become irreconcilable. For Freud, the motivating force behind dreams was sexuality. Jung found Freud's view too limiting. Dreams might just as well originate in a collective unconscious, built through the ages, that gives all mankind its psychological heritage. Without excluding the European psychological approach, the North American school of thought favors a physiological approach in the study of dreams. In our brain, small molecules called neurotransmitters are responsible for transmitting information. Some of these molecules would bring on sleep and dreams. A cat was made to fall asleep and dream as a result of an injection of fluid extracted from the brain of another cat which was asleep. Scientists are hoping to identify these substances and thus possibly find the ultimate sleeping drug. There is more and more research being done on dreams, and new theories abound. Some scientists believe that dreams facilitate the learning process by digesting everyday experiences. For others, dreams eliminate superfluous information to clear the cerebral cortex, the center of thought. Perhaps we overestimate the importance of sleep and dreams. Some experts think we do. But they are also quick to add that it's hard to believe that we sleep a third of our life away for no particular reason. If that were the case, it would have to be a major fault in the evolutionary process. There are as many interpretations as there are dreamers, but no universal code of interpretation exists. We alone hold the key to our dreams. Whatever their meaning, dreams always come as a series of images. One of the main difficulties in studying dreams stems from the fact that to discuss them, you have to put them into words. That is, go from the right side of the brain to the left side. But the two sides, or hemispheres of our brain, each have a different way of seeing things. In their work, lawyers, architects, computer specialists mainly use the left hemisphere of their brain. Conversely, in painters, musicians, dancers, it is the right hemisphere that predominates. However, neither hemisphere is more important or fun than the other. In almost everything we do, the two work together, even if they intervene in varying degrees. Scientists have always been intrigued by the brain. After more than a century of research, they now know fairly accurately how the roles of each region of the brain are distributed. What happens when you make a mistake in carrying out a routine gesture? Which was defective, your signal, or rather your brain's preparation for the signal? Was there an error in spatial perception or misjudgment of the object's weight? The motor command sent to the muscle is the culmination of a host of complex operations. The brain processes vast quantities of information simultaneously, but we still know very little about the mechanisms that are called into play for even the simplest of movements. We do know that the right hemisphere of the brain commands the left side of our body, and vice versa. But there is more to it than that. Each side has its own type of consciousness. The left side of the cerebral cortex is the center of analytical thought, speech, and logic. The right side is responsible for orientation in space, body consciousness, and artistic ability. The two hemispheres are, however, interdependent. They are connected by a large network of fibers, the corpus callosum. The brain is divided into specialized zones to which specific cerebral activities correspond. The center of vision is located in the back of the head, in the visual cortex. It is here that the information picked up by the eye is decoded. This enables us to distinguish the shapes, colors, and position of objects before us. All tactile information is gathered by the skin, muscles, joints, tendons. This information is then sent to the somatic sensory cortex. Next, it is analyzed by the cerebellum and the motor strip. This is where commands for movement are generated. The cerebellum is primarily responsible for the coordination of movement. When emotions get out of hand, a stormy exchange takes place between the limbic system and the frontal cortex. The latter regulates our impulses. If the aggressiveness builds up, the frontal cortex gets tired and can no longer fulfill its role. It becomes overloaded with emotional impulses from the limbic system, which it can no longer control. Anger explodes. If speech gets into the act, then the left hemisphere of the brain goes into action. Meanwhile, the right hemisphere, unused, rests. It seems to have cut off all contact. It's in the thinking, rational part of the brain, the frontal cortex, that we develop strategies. But a decision calls upon all our senses and all parts of our brain, especially our memory. And yet, there seems to be no specific area where information and sensations accumulated over the years are stored. It is believed that memory is spread throughout the brain. Nerve impulses can travel through our brains at a speed of 100 meters per second. Not surprising, then, that for most of our movements, the reaction time is a mere 0.3 of a second. The brain is a world in itself. It consists of some 50 to 100 billion nerve cells called neurons. To exchange information, the neurons send nerve impulses through their main prolongations, the axons. A little like a tree sends its sap from its trunk to all its branches. On the axons and their branches are located the neuron-to-neuron contacts. It is in these tiny swellings that the brain's chemical messengers, the neurotransmitters, are found. The neurotransmitters take over the impulse and relay it to another neuron. Owing to these neurotransmitters, each neuron can establish contacts with thousands of other neurons. During the past few years, scientists have discovered over 40 different kinds of neurotransmitters. They each have a crucial role in orchestrating nerve impulse exchanges. Too much dopamine could cause schizophrenia, and a deficiency of the same neurotransmitter could bring on Parkinson's disease. Many laboratories around the world are putting enormous effort into trying to produce synthetic neurotransmitters. Scientists have great hopes for these drugs of the future. By restoring the biochemical balance of the brain, they will be able to eliminate the causes of a number of diseases. Experiments on the brain, like many others, often involve laboratory animals, but other procedures have to be used to study an active human brain. About 100 years ago, Richard Caton, a British physiologist, was the first to measure the electric activity of an animal brain. But to do so, he had to open the animal's cranium. 50 years later, amplification techniques allowed for the study of electric activity in a human brain through the scalp. This investigating technique is called electroencephalography. Let's see how it works. A brain is constantly producing electrical currents. This electrical activity starts in the nerve cells, the neurons. The electric currents can be picked up by a device called an electroencephalogram, or EEG. This machine registers variations in electric currents occurring in a brain. For example, if a person is active, the brain will produce higher frequency electric impulses called beta waves than when the person is resting quietly. Then slower electrical impulses known as alpha waves appear. Alpha waves are typical of relaxation and daydream states. Sigma waves emerge when we fall asleep. Delta waves are those of dreams. And while electrical activity changes according to our states of consciousness, it also changes from one part of the brain to another. For instance, The group of neurons responsible for sight in a certain area of the brain presents the same electrical variations at the same time. The electroencephalogram enables scientists to specifically visualize the electric variations happening in various parts of the brain. By analyzing thousands of EEGs, scientists have been able to establish the characteristics of normal cerebral activity and, conversely, to diagnose certain brain diseases, injuries, or other afflictions from abnormal EEGs. To record a person's electroencephalogram, about 20 small metal discs, or electrodes, are pasted on specific spots of the scalp. Changes in electrical activity in each electrode are compared with the neutral activity of a zone of the body, for instance, an earlobe. Each electrode is connected to an amplifier according to a pattern that corresponds to the various regions of the brain. The feeble electric signal is then amplified and pen-recorded on a graph sheet. Electroencephalography is chiefly used for medical purposes. Analysis of the graphs enables doctors to diagnose various forms of epilepsy or coma and to locate cerebral injuries or tumors. But electroencephalography is also a research instrument. It is used to assess the effectiveness of certain therapies or to study phenomena like sleep and dreams. Interpreting an electroencephalogram is highly complicated, even for experts. But it's an extremely valuable tool nonetheless. On the other hand, when you need precise information on the state of a brain, to locate a tumor, for instance, doctors now use the latest investigative technique, the magnetic resonance scanner. Imagine that we could multiply the Earth's magnetic pull 30,000 times. A technique was developed in the United States in the 70s that does just that. No, it's not a new weapon. It's the latest in medical diagnostic techniques, magnetic resonance imaging. The technique enables doctors to obtain images inside the human body with great precision. A magnetic resonance imaging test presents no danger nor discomfort to the patient. There is no radiation, and unlike other examining methods, the doctor does not have to inject pharmacological substances into the patient's body. Moreover, in many cases, it circumvents exploratory surgery, which is always traumatic for the system. Scientists were able to devise such a technique because the human body is 98% water. There is no shortage of hydrogen atoms. When patients are subjected to the scanner's magnetic field, the hydrogen atoms in their body line up in a parallel queue, as it were, like little compasses. The scanner emits a radio wave that strikes the atoms of hydrogen. Under the impact, the atoms begin to spin randomly. The radio wave is interrupted. The hydrogen atoms line up again, but this time resonating like little bells that have been struck. The radio resonance of each atom is then picked up by an antenna, digitally coded, and interpreted by a computer. By locating the position of the hydrogen atoms, this process makes it possible to produce images of exquisite anatomical detail. These images can then be examined on a video screen or transferred onto film. Used for diagnostic purposes, the magnetic resonance scanner enables specialists to detect injury or disease in the spinal column, liver, or heart at an early stage. Brain tumors, which used to be invisible, are now detectable. The scanner itself is opening up new avenues in research. In the near future, we will be able to observe what happens in heart transplant rejection. Magnetic resonance images will make it possible to adjust anti-rejection drug dosages without having to perform repeated biopsies. Magnetic resonance imaging is being perfected continually. The next generation of machines will even be able to produce three-dimensional images of the organs in a human body. Someday, technological progress may be able to give us a way to exchange behavior recipes or dream cocktails. In the meantime, every night holds beautiful gifts in store for us. A mysterious rendezvous with the unknown.